Hi, I'm Mary Jo Webster. In my latest edition of videos about R, I'm going to introduce you to a new package I recently learned about that can help you. I think the best way to think about it is it can help you learn how to use ggplot to make plots. As you might know, ggplot is part of the Tidyverse package, and it's the main way for making charts, various graphics. It's got so much flexibility and so many things you can do with ggplot that it's actually kind of hard to learn because there's so much. It's a little overwhelming for a lot of people. So I heard about this package called Esquisse, which I think I'm pronouncing correctly. It's a French word, and it creates a GUI interface for you to make charts, and it writes the ggplot code for you. So you'll see in a minute that we can kind of learn how the code works by pushing the buttons in Esquisse first. It does have some limitations, so it's not my favorite thing, I think, for everything, and I may not have even found all the things that it can do. I did some Googling to try to answer some questions of some limitations I found. Couldn't find the answers. If you find them, please send them my way. But I think this can at least give you some introduction. So I've got a file set up here that will be shared on my website and my GitHub pages so you can download and follow along. I just am pulling in the data that the Washington Post publishes on people killed in police shootings throughout the United States, and I'm just going to do a little data cleanup on the way in. I'm going to create two columns, one with a year that's set as a character and one that's a year set as numeric. So we have a couple of options for our charts. So as you may know, this is one record for each person shot by police, and it goes back quite a few years, and it's kept up to date quite often. I'm working on this in late 2022, so I don't have quite a complete year of 2022, but it will be done soon. So you can see there's a bunch of information about each person, manner of death, whether they were armed, age, gender, race, all kinds of things like that. You can go play around with it. So let's talk about Esquisse. So to launch Esquisse, you just need this function, Esquisse with an R on the end, so Esquisser, if you want to pronounce it that way. And then you put the name of your data frame inside the parentheses. You'll see here that I am coding it with the name of the package in front of the name of the function. This is kind of like the full name of the function if you've never seen this kind of code before. It is helpful if you have a real generic function in your code that you might want to remind yourself which package you got that function from. It's just kind of like I said, the full name of it. So this is all you do, and you run this chunk of code, and it's going to launch this interface. It takes a minute, depending on how big your data set is. And it's going to create this lovely little interface for you. And across the top, you'll see these are all the fields from our data frame. And it's showing us the orange ones are columns that are set as character, that R is identifying as character. And you can see that YR column that I created as character. The darker blue are numeric, and the light blue is date. And then there's a button over here right now. It says auto. This is where we can select the kind of chart we want to make. And you can see right now they're all grayed out because we haven't given it any data to work with yet. So we'll come back to this. And then there are some boxes here at the top: X, Y, fill, color, size, group, and facet. And this is where we're going to, I guess you can think of this as the designer. This is where we're going to fill in these boxes as needed. As you probably know, a chart at minimum needs an x-axis, something that goes on the x-axis, but it might also need a y-axis. You'll see that in a minute. Along the bottom are also some buttons. If you click on them, you get options, and then you click it again to make it go away. So you can see we can put titles and labels in. We can, the plot options is going to change depending on what kind of chart we're making. The appearance also will change a little bit depending on the kind, but this is where we can deal with colors. The data box is where we can filter our data, so we can set it to just certain things that maybe we want to limit it to. And then over here, the code box, this is where the code is going to get written, and you'll see that there's an option to insert the code into script, which we're going to do. So let's start with a chart. So if we put that character year, the YR, in the X box, it's going to start to do its magic. It automatically switched to a bar, and it created a chart for us right away. And this is the most basic of ggplot charts. If we look at the code, if you have done any ggplot work yourself, you'll see that other than the color of the bars, and it's also assigning a theme, it's called theme minimal, that dictates the font and the background and some of that. But other than that, this is the most basic ggplot chart you could absolutely do. It's simply taking the data frame, and then we're giving it the one AES. AES stands for aesthetics. We're just giving it an X value. We're saying the X value, in other words, what should the bars be made out of, is the year. And and then we're telling it geom bar, make it a bar chart. That's bare bones ggplot, and the fill equals is how Esquisse is coloring these bars navy blue, and that's all it's doing here. It's very, very simple. This works. We don't need a Y value because we're simply counting the records in the table, and ggplot knows that that's what it needs to do. If we need to count some other means, we're going to have to do something a little bit fancier, and you have something in the Y, which we'll do in a minute. So now we have a lovely little bar. This is pretty basic. We can go to labels and titles. We can say people shot by police each year. In subtitle, maybe we say nationally. Maybe the caption we say source Washington Post. And then this X and Y labels is what goes under the bars, so we can say this is years, and the Y label would be number of people. You don't need those labels, but if you want them, there they are. And again, to make this go away, you push on labels and title again, and it'll go away. So you can see now it's got a label here, but oh, that title is really small. So I'm going to go back into labels and titles, and if you push on this plus button next to the title, you get options. Look, the font size is only set at 13, so we'll up that. Let's go maybe to 20. You can see, you can align it. Maybe we put it in the center. We can make it bold, and we'll push this button again to make this go away. Push the labels and titles again to make it go away. There it is. And now our subtitle looks a little funky, so maybe I better do that. I'll put that center, and maybe we'll just make that like 13 instead of 20. There. Doesn't that look beautiful? So let's look under plot options. So stack, dodge, and fill. These have more to do with if we are going to do stacked or multi-bar charts where there's like more than one bar per year. And then flip coordinate is to flip it around so that it's goes sideways. So that's all it does, is it flips it around. You can see that this would be useful if in a situation where your labels for your bars, here our labels are the year. If our labels were really long, like the name of a state, perhaps might want to flip it. So I'm going to unflip it, put it back. And then appearance, like I said, here's where you can dictate the color. Maybe let's go with a different color. Oh, I'll go with green. That's an ugly green, so we'll go a little darker. There we go. And then the themes here, there's various themes that you can choose, and you'll see it mainly changes the background. You can see what you want. Data, like I said, is a filter tool. So if we were going to publish this chart, we might not want to include 2022, the last bar here, because it's incomplete. So maybe we filter that out. So we're going to go to data, and you can see that we could filter by date up here, but we do have the year column that I created is down at the bottom. And you can simply X out of that. You can see that the character version is YR. Right below that is the numeric version. You can see that Esquisse is handling them each very differently depending on what they are. So this numeric, or the character one, is super easy to remove something. You X out of it, and it kind of appears down here in a pull-down menu. So now, like, I clicked out of there, and you can see 2022 is not there anymore. If I click in here again, I can put it back quite easily if I want. So it's very easy to just turn things on and off in here and go back and forth. So I'm going to close this, and I'm kind of liking this. One of the things I have not figured out is how to put the values on the top of these bars, like how many people is that. We can kind of see roughly that it hovers around 1,000 people each year, but I haven't figured out how to put the value up there yet. Let me know if you do. So here's our code now, and look, whoa, it got a lot bigger than it was before. And really, what happened here is it added things sort of in the order we did it, but not necessarily. So this labs part is the title and labels from the first button. Remember, I changed the theme, so here, theme classic. And then also as part of that theme, what it changed the size of that title and subtitle down here at the bottom. And then up at the very top, a bit changed at the top. So instead of, if you remember, it said ggplot, and then it had fatal df, which is the name of our data frame, in the parentheses. Well, instead it used some tidyverse code, and it's calling the data frame, and then it has a pipe, and then saying we're going to filter out year 2022. That's what this does. The exclamation point says not in year 2022 is what that is saying. And then it pipes, it does another pipe to connect the ggplot. So it's just a different way of saying, here's the data we're going to use, now make a plot. So now we can say insert code into script. I'm going to push that, and what's going to happen is it's going to close Esquisse altogether and take us back to our script. Did it go? No, it put it in the code, but it didn't close Esquisse, sorry. So, but I'm going to close Esquisse here. You can't get it out of your way. Well, I guess you can maybe. You can move it a little bit out of your way, but I'm just going to X out of it. We're going to be done. The thing that I kind of don't like is that it puts it wherever you left your cursor. So notice I left my cursor in the middle of the name of this data frame right here. That's where I left my cursor, and it dropped it right in the middle there. So there, I fixed that. It also brings in the library references that are needed. I already have tidyverse loaded, so I don't really need these, but it puts them there with every plot that you put in. And so now, here's our code. We can run our code in our notebook file here and get the plot right there in our notebook. And there's other ways you can export this right out of here using a little snippet of code as well. So that's a really simple example of Esquisse. I'm going to show you one more. So let's say now we want to know how many people were of each race who were killed. The big conversation in people shot by police is that it's disproportionately black. In order to get that, we need a count by race, which isn't in our data. Our data is not summarized. So we'll start by summarizing our data to make a table that has those two year values and then the race and the number of people with that race in that year. So this is a normalized data set. There's one column of numbers and multiple rows for each year and multiple rows for each race, that kind of thing. Most ggplot and Esquisse as well, is because it uses ggplot, really like normalized data like this more often than not. So we have that ready to go. Now let's, you see here I've got that same code we had before, but this time I'm calling the data frame called by race, which I just made. So I'm going to run this and it's going to launch the GUI interface again. But this time it'll have the different data under it. Here it comes. You can see it's just those 4 columns that I made in there. Let's start by, we'll use year again in our X values, and this time put the count in the Y. And at first it's going to look kind of funny. I mean, that doesn't look like what our other chart did, but that's because it's really not working properly yet. We need to put race in the group box, and so what's going to happen is and then we need to also put it in the fill box. There we go. And now the colors are horrible. Yes, the colors are horrible. But now we have a stacked bar chart, and we can change those colors. One of the other limitations of Esquisse is I could not figure out a way to rearrange the groups while it's in here. That would be something you'd have to do in the code. There's a way to change the facet order, that's what it's called, in R, and so you set that before you bring it into Esquisse. But we can change these. You can see the appearance looks a little different now. We could set specific colors for these different racial groups. So maybe I want to go with more of like a gray for the white group. The other thing we can't change in here is A for Asian, B for Black, H for Hispanic. We would need to change that ahead of time as well before bringing it in. Now here 2022 is still short. The reason is that there's a lot of records in 2021 and 2022 that have no value for the race. And when I made this table, I filtered them out. So it'd be a decision, obviously, that maybe you would want to change and instead have another color that would indicate unknown or not available or something like that. So the other thing we could do here is with this, we could make these line charts instead of a stack chart. But a line chart wants a numeric value in the x-axis. So I'm going to put year numeric down in the x-axis. And instead of, look, it guessed that I want to do a scatter plot, basically. No, we don't want to do that. So let's see if we can change it. So now here, notice that some of these charts types are being offered and some of them are grayed out. And that's because each chart type needs a different kind of data. Line is one that we can do this time. So I'm going to select line, and it's probably going to look kind of crazy. Oh, it's not too bad. So because we put, here, I'm going to take race out of group. Oh, it won't even let me do that. There we go. And it's probably going to look really funky for a little while. We'll take race out of there as well. There. This is what you might get when you try to make a line chart the first time with groups. It doesn't know what to do because there's multiple records for each year, right? So you got to make sure that whatever you're grouping by is in the group box, and then also, and that gets you your nice lines, and then you also bring it down to the color box, and that's going to get you the color of the lines. Notice that we used fill for the bar charts. We'll use color for the race chart, for the line charts, and that'll get you the different colors. And again, we have the instance of them pretty funky colors, not what I would choose, but you can go up here and make some different choices. Oh, this is not letting me. I'm going to see if I can make this bigger. No. Okay, so we can, under the appearance, we can pick even a different palette that maybe would get us some better color options. Also, you can specify them there. The other thing that might be new here is that we can change the size of the lines. So under plot options, now we have a bunch of other things here, including the size of the lines. And the last time I used this didn't really change the lines really, and I had to do it in the code. It seems to be trying to do it, but it's not quite doing it. And if we look at the code, there should be, what it should have done is inserted some code in this geom line saying size equals, and it didn't do that. So I think that's not working in here, but again, limitation. We've got a good start here to our chart, and again, we can put it back in the code, and then we can make things look better in the code. So I'm going to put this back in my code. Did it go? Yes, it did. So I'm going to close this. It put it way up here. You can see when I changed that color, it added this scale color line of code. And if in geom line, I'm going to say size equals 1.5. And we will run just this little bit and make our plot. I didn't put any labels on there, did I? But wanted the, oh gosh, look at those lines. They're so much bigger now. So as you can see, there's some limitations on labeling and sizing. I think that being able to choose your colors in there is super slick, because if you wanted, well, let's take these lines for example. If you wanted to color each one of these separately using hex values, it's quite a bit of code to write, and it'd be much easier to click right in Esquisse and set those colors and then send it back over here when you're done. So that is, I've just given you a really brief introduction to bar charts and line charts in Esquisse. You can go play around with it. All the documentation with this will show you where to go get Esquisse, and you can follow along with this code. Thanks for watching.